Hi Year 3, Miss McCabe here. I hope you're all okay and that you had great half terms doing things that make you happy. Now we've had the exciting news, haven't we, that we're all going to be back to school again together on the 8th of March, which really isn't a long time away now. So it's that final push of learning at home or learning at school in a slightly different way until we are all back together as a year group. And I cannot wait. And all your Year 3 teachers are so excited for us all to be back together. So come on, Year 3, we've got a final last push now, showing those great expectations until we're back together. Now, for the rest of this week and next week, I am going to be teaching some of your spelling videos with Mrs. Weston. Now, we have actually covered and learnt all of the Year 3 spelling rules that we need to know already. So what we're going to do now is we're going to rewind and revisit the rules that we have already learnt and make sure we're really great at them, so that by the time that you go to Year 4 at the end of this year, you're feeling really confident with these rules. So between now and when we break up in the summer, we're going to be revisiting the spelling rules that we've already learnt this year and making sure that we're really confident with them. So before we revisit that first rule that we learnt all the way back in September at the beginning of Year 3, I just want to rewind to these different terms that you can see on the board here. These different terms and spelling terms actually are really important to understand so that we can spell effectively and greatly. So the first term there is my turn, root word. Your turn? Well done. So a root word is a word with no prefix or suffix. And we hear that term a lot in spelling. So for example, jump is a root word. Next term, my turn prefix, your turn? Well done. Now, a prefix is a group of letters that go at the beginning of a word. For example, the prefix im. Who can think of a word that uses that prefix im that we've learnt in Year 3? I'm thinking of the word impossible. I wonder what you were thinking. And we've actually learnt some other prefixes in Year 3 too, haven't we? For example, un and ill, unsafe and illegal, for example. And finally, the third term, my turn suffix, your turn. Super. Now the suffix is the opposite to a prefix. They're a group of letters that go at the end of the word. For example, ing, ing. We can add that suffix to the end of a root word to create a new word with a slightly different meaning. For example, jumping. Okay, if you want to pause the screen before we move on and talk about any other examples of root words, prefixes or suffixes, you can do that now. Great job, Year 3. So let's think about what rule we're going to rewind to first. So today we are learning to know and apply the rule for adding a suffix when the root word ends in the letter Y. How? Old learning is retrieved. Why? So that we can correct the sentences. So we're going to correct some misspelt words in sentences. So let's rewind and remember that rule now. So the rule is the Y on a root word is changed to an I before ed, er and est are added, but not before ing. So we're going to be focusing on root words that end in the letter Y. We're then going to be creating new words by adding the suffixes ed, er, est and ing. We need to remember that rule. If we're adding ed, er or est, we change that Y to an I. If we're adding ing, we don't. So here you can see we've got our root word copy. We know that this is a root word because there's no prefix or suffix. Remember that from our rewind at the beginning, just then. Here you can see the suffixes ed, er, and ing have been added to that root word to make the words copied, copier, and copying. We've had to apply that rule to create those new spellings. I'm just going to show you on my whiteboard how that has happened. So let's look at the first one first. So copy becomes copied. Okay, so I'm going to always start with my root word here. Copy. I'm adding the suffix ed. Now I know that if I'm adding ed, I need to change the y in my root word to an I before adding the suffix. So to spell copied, starting to write my root word, my y needs to change to an I before adding my suffix ed. Okay, so that is the correct spelling for copied. Next one, copier. So I've got my root word copy. I'm adding my suffix Because I'm adding I need to remember to change my y to an I before adding my suffix. Remember not to write the y, Miss McCabe, change it to an I, and then add your suffix er, copier. Okay, last one, copying. So I have my root word, I'm going to squeeze this one in, copy, and ing. Remember, Miss McCabe, this one's different because you don't change the y to an I when you're adding ing. So this one's really simple. Copying, keep my y the same, and add ing. Copying. Now, I just want to show you why we don't actually change the y to an I when our root word ends in a y. If we did, it would look like this. I've changed that y to an I there. And this is what my spelling looks like. I've got a double I. It doesn't look right. It doesn't make sense. We shouldn't have words that have double I when you've got your ing suffix at the end, when your root word begins with a Y. Okay? In most words, you keep the Y the same and add the ing. However, here on the board, you can see, just going to pop my face back on. There we go. There are two exceptions to this rule, and they are these words here. Because actually, the words taxiing and skiing are two examples of words that use that double I. Okay, so always remember those two exceptions to this rule. Taxiing and skiing use that double I with the ing suffix. Okay, so let's see if you can apply this rule now. We have got 4 different root words here, and you have got a suffix to add onto them. Okay, so for example, you've got happiest. I want you to have a go at spelling that word happiest. Grumpy and grumpier, cry and ed, cried, and fly and ing, flying. I want you to have a go at spelling those words now. I want you to pause the screen. The rule is just at the bottom there for you to remind yourselves. Okay, let's see if you are right. So we've got happy and ist. I'm going to show you on my board just here. So happiest. Now I'm adding my suffix est. So I need to remember to turn that y into an I before adding my suffix. Who spelt it like that? Well done if you did. Next one, grumpier. I'm adding the suffix if I'm adding I must change that y to an I. Stop at that y, change it to an I, and then add your suffix grumpier. Who is grumpier? Mr. Martin or Mr. Jones? What do you think? Okay, next one. Cry and ed. Again, I'm adding my ed suffix. I'm checking my rule here. If I'm adding that suffix, I change my y to an I. Change that y to an I and add ed. It should look like that, year 3. Well done. And finally, fly and ing. I'm adding ing. So I do not need to change that y to an I. I don't want that double I unless it's taxiing or skiing. Really simple, no changes, just add that suffix on. Well done, year 3. Hopefully, today's learning episode is reminding you of this rule. Now, today you have got 3 different tasks, year 3. Just changing my face background, there we go. You have got, these 2 tasks are on Classdojo. So firstly, you're going to be adding the suffixes to these root words and spelling the new word correctly by applying the rule. And secondly, you're going to convince me, you're going to spot the mistakes in these sentences. So spot the words where the rule hasn't been applied and change those spellings to the correct ones. And finally, on Classdojo, there are some games on a website that you can play applying this rule as well. Okay, so you can play those games over the next week. You don't have to do them today, but you can do them up until our spelling test, which is going to be next Monday. So here are your spellings for the next week, and the test will be on Monday with Mrs. Weston. Okay, now tomorrow you are going to do your high frequency words with Mrs. Weston, and on Friday we're going to have our box set preview quiz instead of spelling, where we're going to have a little bit of a quiz about what we've learned this week and some questions about last half term as well to see if you can remember what we learnt. Okay, so it is only today's lesson where we're practicing this rule. So between now and then, if you want to be practicing your different spellings from your spelling list ahead of our test on Monday, that would be great. Okay, you can use lots of the different strategies that you learnt with Mrs. Bird last half term, like rainbow spelling, pyramid spelling, creating word searches or writing your own sentences with those words into. Okay, super work, year 3. We're looking forward to seeing your learning from today, and we hope that you have a brilliant day. Bye.